slides. Okay, let me go to present. Okay, you guys ready?
We're ready.
Okay, so today we're going to go over a project that I've been working on with Marcus in his business class. And the goal of this project, which I'll show on the next slide, is to utilize AI tools with his core curriculum together in a meaningful way. Because as we all know, AI is kind of a scary thing, right? And I've talked about this about other projects as well. This AI is out there, it's in the real world. We can't stop it. The students are going to use it. So my question to myself and to others is, how can we take advantage of AI while limiting the detrimental effects of students not learning because they're using it, right? And so how do we basically make it so they can use it efficiently, right? So they're learning. If you are on your computers here, if you type in, I don't know if you're familiar with using a bit.ly, which is a shortened link. If you type just bit.ly or / and then this code here, you will get this document, which is the project worksheet, basically, or project outline that we hand out to students. And it has the outline step by step, basically, of what the students need to do. This is in still its working stage. It's not like finalized yet. We're still tweaking it as we go because these tools are new, and how the students are using it, we're still figuring out how they use it, how we want them to use it, to kind of blend it together to kind of teach more a better way while using it. So I'll leave this up for a second. If you can maybe let me know if you got it. 1 second. You still?
Got it.
You got it. Good. Okay. So let me go to the next slide. So the introduction. Once again, the purpose of this is that we're going to use a specific methodology, which is using the writing process, which I like to use in my projects, along with the core curriculum that Mr. Needham is using for his business class, and the AI tools. That's the whole goal, right? I'm hoping, the overall hope for any time we teach, right, is that they're going to utilize their thinking, right, their critical thinking skills while using these tools to better learn the core curriculum, right? That's the overall goal of this.
Yeah, so they're going to produce a video. There's a YouTube channel produced by this guy called The Company Man, and he produces videos on all sorts of different companies. So we use that as a little template, and then we're asking the students to make their own presentation on a company of their choice. So that was the idea of it, and what they were going to do was they're going to use the AI tools to investigate the origins and the history of the company. And the SWOT part, SWOT is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a company. So it shows the position of the company and its prospects going forward. So that's what we wanted to do, to utilize business skills, but using the IT, which I don't know too much about, to do that.
Right, it's almost like the IT component is kind of like the framework to kind of help them to learn this. As Marcus said, The Company Man is a YouTube channel, and he has this whole channel where he takes one company and he basically goes through SWOT, right? The strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and he makes these really entertaining videos. They're not very long, about 10-15 minutes, and we're like, wow, wouldn't that be great if the students could become an expert in one company, right? Where they really know the company inside and out, and it's a company they choose, so they're somewhat internally motivated because it's a company they're interested in, right? So I just had one of the students come in, and she asked, well, what company do I choose? I'm like, well, what are you interested in, right? So they choose it, so they actually want to learn, right? They want to kind of figure this stuff out, and they may already have some background knowledge of the company that they can utilize. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. Okay, so the project overview once again. The purpose of this is we're going to divide the project into stages, okay? We're going to encourage students to think about using different technologies. For example, with the AI tools, there's a plethora of tools out there. And in the last project I did with them, they actually found other tools that were AI-based that they used that I had no knowledge of. And they utilized those, and it was pretty cool, right? They're going to make a video file, like Mr. Beetham said, and they're going to use the inspiration will be the company man. So that's kind of how it's broken down. Now the writing process, once again, I've mentioned, this is what is kind of like the crux of the whole, or the framework for this whole project. And I found early on, while teaching elementary, that the writing process is a great process for every project, regardless of the subject. Technology, science, PE, everything. It's a great way to do it. And I was thinking, I kind of had like a moment where I'm like, wow, you know, the problem with AI is they can just go to an AI tool, type in, write me an essay on SWOT on this one company, and it will spit out an essay. They've used AI, they had a final product, they learned something, maybe, if they looked at the paper at all. So my goal is have them, if they look at the paper, the more exposure they get to what was spit out by the AI, they will learn the content. So by breaking it up into stages, using the writing process, you know, refining this each step, you know, the paper gets refined each step of the way, they're looking at their paper. They're looking at the content that was generated by AI. They're soaking it in. Their exposure is increasing, right? So the goal is to break it into segments, regardless if you use the writing process or not. The more times they're looking at the content, the more exposure they get, some of it's going to seep in, right? So once again, you know, the different stages, there's 6 stages, right? Drafting, revising, editing, you know, the final stage, the brainstorming, all those are the different components of the writing process. By the way, most of the kids can't name all the steps, even in high school. So I have to review, you know, what each of these steps mean so they understand it. I mean, they usually do most of these steps anyway. So the steps. Choosing a company was the first thing they needed to do, right? Inspired by the company man. We made it so they couldn't choose a company that the company man already did. So it had to be a company that he hadn't done, and it can't be a company that any other student chose, right? So it's one unique company for each of them, okay? SWOT, understanding. Provide resources and understanding for SWOT now. So Marcus's part in his course was to teach SWOT. That had to come first, right? They had to understand what the basic concepts were, the understanding, so that's the core curriculum, right? Then they're going to actually produce something with it. The mind mapping, this is the pre-writing stage in the writing process, and I think it is a vital stage that they need to do. This is where they explore the different companies, what they already know about the companies perhaps. So when they do choose a company, it's a company that they will more than likely want to do a long project with. Because what I found doing other projects is that when they don't think about, you know, when you're giving them choice, when you don't, when you say just choose something and they quickly choose something, they sometimes, or oftentimes, will start going down the project and figuring out, wait a minute, I'm not really interested in this topic, whatever it may be, or there's not enough information, more importantly, like this financial analysis is quite important for this project. And if they choose a company that's really small or new, there might not be any data on it, right? Do you have a question or something? So it was really important that they do the mind mapping, and I teach them that this is a skill that they can use once again. Any project they're doing anywhere, using a mind map to explore the concepts first is usually a good practice. I use it all the time, even when it's not generating an essay, even just like when I have a project here at work, I always make a mind map of all the different potential ideas and things that might come about. So mind mapping was a really good first way to start it. So that's the pre-writing stage in the writing process. Stage 2 is the drafting, collecting data, and actually starting to use the AI tools. Going back real quick to the mind map though, I want to make one mention of this. I did tell the students a big problem with AI is it gives them too much information sometimes. And a great example of this is we have one student who will not be named, but this one student found that in the mind mapping, there's AI mind mapping tools. and this student would plug something in, and it would give him like I'm exaggerating, but like 500 little bubbles popping off of that. Too much information overload. So that's a problem with all these AI tools. It will give too much information, right? That's also where the writing process can come in to help. So I told the students, sometimes you may not want to use AI-based tools because it's actually going to make your work harder, right? Because if you have to go through a mind map with 500 different options, that's going to take a lot of time, right? And a lot of that data might not be usable or applicable to what they're trying to do. So I make sure that the students are very well aware that AI tools sometimes can cause more work. Marcus, anything on that? They kind of got that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. Okay, so gathering data, encourage students to collect relevant information on the chosen company, and that's where, I said, be careful because you don't want too much information. Introduce a variety of tools that is applicable. So for each one of these in the draft paper, you'll notice I give suggested AI tools. There's way more tools, and we kept it open. We said you can use any tool you want. You just have to say what tool it is later on when we do the citation.
They've also used ChatGPT and Bard.
Yeah, and to be fair, most of the AI tools that is all they are. It's just ChatGPT and Bard and the Bing one. So there's very few actual engines, AI engines or programs, and there's 10,000 different little companies that are using that and rebranding it as their own. Another really important part to this project is using Google. Google Documents, as you guys already know, has a really important feature which is called revision history. And once again, going back to the purpose of using the writing process and to force the students to do a project in stages, regardless if you use the writing process or not, is that they're getting exposure, right? They're looking at their data, they're looking at new data, they're thinking about their data. They're doing all that many times through the course of the project, thereby learning, right? By using a Google Doc, we can prove that. It's very difficult to prove if a student has made modifications unless you have some type of revision history. Microsoft has something like that as well, like track changes. But Google makes it extremely simple, right, Marcus? You can go in there and between each stage, like the draft and revision, for example, we told them, we're going to go in, we're going to look to see if you've deleted anything, if they had too much information, added anything, if you found anything interesting that you wanted to add, and the teacher might give suggestions as well, like Marcus gave suggestions of what to look at, and they might have moved things. Each time they're moving something, they've obviously looked at it, right?
Yes, they'll get a grade for every stage. Make sure they weren't just getting one thing and that's it.
Correct. Yeah, each stage they get a different unique grade. And the grade is proven by, their evidence is by the revision history in Google Documents. So I think it's really important to mention that in this. And once again, I think in every subject, it's pretty much you can use it. Revision history. And that's what I was just talking about, right? It's the evidence in the revision history that proves that they actually have done the work. Stage 3 is revision components. Ethical use is going to be a very important part of this. Throughout the project, we are explaining to them that they need to cite their work and the importance of that, and the, how plagiarism can hurt them in the future going forward, especially once they go to college. And so we're teaching them the different ways of citing. Now, there's another presentation that I gave where I talk about how to cite if you use an AI tool. And it's extremely simple. And I usually tell them to go to Purdue to kind of find out the current way of doing it. But basically, if they're doing, in their paper, if they're citing something or using it or quoting it, they need to get the prompt that they used. And I won't show it here necessarily, but they just get like the first 3 words of the prompt they put into the chat engine. They put that in quotation marks in the reference section, followed by the tool they use, the date of the publication of the tool, so on and so forth. It's very simple. It's very similar to MLA or APA. It's not much different than that. that's how they would do their inline for the actual paper. We're going to also in the reference section, or before they get to the reference section in the conclusion, we're going to have them refer to the tools that they use. Part of the grading rubric actually talks about ethical use, and I'm going to go through that in a moment. But that's basically what we're talking about when we're talking about ethical use. The rest of that is pretty much, track changes. I already talked about all that. The revision history, the importance of that is also important. Any questions from that so far? Okay, editing. Editing, we haven't gotten there yet, so this is still theoretical. But our goal is that they're actually going to start creating their paper. And part of the editing is going to be, in their paper, is going to be the 6+1 writing traits. And so that's what we're going to emphasize more in the writing process from the editing stage. The tools, they're still going to use the tools, and what's important in the tools and the chatbots with the 6+1 is there's many things that we've already taught them, like voice, like who's the audience that the paper is going to be written for, or the video is going to be made for. Is it going to be, are you tailoring it towards students? Are you going to tailor it towards adults? That's one thing. Also, we're going to talk about fluency, where they're going to change the actual syntax of the sentence structure, paragraph structure, where they're going to use complex sentences mixed in with simple sentences. That's another aspect of that. So with all the 6+1 writing traits, you can have the students get their pre-existing work, tell the chat engine to modify their paper using, whatever thing it is to guide it to kind of do the editing stage, right? Because that's the final part of it. It's more conventions, which should come out pretty good automatically from that. But that's the goal of the editing. Also in this stage is where we're going to have to start collecting images, because once again, the final product is going to be a video. And in the video, how it works is they create still images. I guess technically they could actually do little video clips as well, because there are AI tools that can do that as well. And they're going to grab the media along with the paper that they have written, and they're going to put those two together to make the final video. In this part also, before they get to the final paper, is they're going to have to use a voiceover, and it's a voice component where they are actually not going to use they're not going to read the paper themselves. They're actually going to use an AI-based voice generator to read their paper for them. And there's a real good benefit to that, as we gave in the video a limit to 2 to 3 minutes, right? Because I don't want to sit there, and Marcus doesn't want to sit there for 10, 15 minutes for each student, because that's just it's very painful, right? So we said you have to do 2 or 3 minutes, which is a problem, because these AI generating tools is going to make these papers are going to be huge, right? They can be huge. So when you get one of these AI voice generators, it's text to speech. So they get the paper, they copy and paste it into the voice generator, and it will read it. And we instructed the students when they get to the stage, they're going to time it, and they're going to see how long the paper is, right, when it's being read, because the pace and the cadence will be the same for the whole paper. If they themselves read the paper and they're timing it, they're going to speed up, they're going to slow down, and each time they do it, the timing is going to be off. It's going to be different. So they won't have a true time of how long their paper is or their video. So we're going to, during this stage, the edit stage, the final stage, before they hit the final stage, we want them to do the timing as well. Now, the grading rubric. Inside the paper, I didn't put it up on the board, we have 3 categories in the rubric that we're looking at. The first one is ethical use, and it's just a 4-point scale, and you can change it, add columns or take them away as you see fit, but we thought that this was an important part of this project. Once again, they can use AI tools, and if they can't explain why they're using it, and to tell in the final product somehow note the tools they use, we're going to think that they made all this stuff up by themselves, and they're going to be claiming credit where it's not deserved. AI tools, the problem with it though, is, and one of the students actually asked me this, and they're like, well, how do you cite that when it's getting information from different places? So when you ask an AI tool one question, it will give you one answer, but the answer was made up from who knows how many sources, right? And it gets little pieces like a puzzle, puts them all together and spits out one answer. So how do you cite that? right? So we've instructed them just to cite the tool that they use. Once again, they put the first three words of their prompt along with the tool they use, and we're going to call that good. I mean, we can't really do anything beyond that. There are some tools like Perplexity, which is an AI-based tool that will actually give you the citations when it gives you an answer, and it will pull out a footnote for each one of the inside the answer if it's a longer answer. But I don't trust that either, because Perplexity uses ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT does not list where it gets its information. And it is using anything that, technically that's on the internet. Even though they're not supposed to, it even uses information they're not allowed to have access to. You know, there's court cases currently in the US on that. Yeah.
So where the plagiarism comes in our email that, like,
how do we know it's being plagiarized if they're blurring the lines of that? That's the hard part.
It is fully blurred. Like, where, how you make sure?
How are we going to know?
Yeah.
Well, okay, what the question you're getting at is, are there tools like Turnitin or other plagiarizer checkers that you can run it through?
I'm completely confused with the ChatGPT.
That's the answer.
Yes.
I already went through
it will be complete confusion.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Yeah, totally. I went through and got like the biggest named AI plagiarism checkers. I went through all of them with a paper that I 100% wrote in a chatbot. I plugged it in, and they all gave me different numbers. You know, like 60%, 10%, 30%. But it was all over the map.
So
and even Turnitin, the company that we actually have adopted here and pay for a subscription,
yes.
It can't do a very good job either.
No.
So you're right. We're going to have to somewhat trust the students, and that's why it's very important, I believe, that we teach the students how to use AI tools properly. Because if we don't, and we ignore it, and we place our heads in the sand like ostriches, I don't know if they really do that, you know, we're basically trusting they're going to do the right thing without giving them guidance. The purpose of teachers is to guide our students. If we teach them theoretically, the right way to use AI tools using a method like this or something that you make up, you're at least going through, you know, the due diligence of teaching them the right way. If we don't, they're going to use these tools anyway.
Yeah, they use it. Yeah.
Regardless if you want to or not, they're going to use them. You can't stop them. And there's almost no way to tell if they used it.
I have a question. Like,
Yeah.
these same students, when they go to university, is there any, like, even citing AI tools? Is that already a thing? We have.
I'm not in a university. I don't
know.
know.
Just came up with it, like how to cite the AI.
Well, I went to Purdue's a university.
Oh, they came up.
They
with
have
that.
their own. This is where I got my citation stuff from. Was
Yeah.
them. I'm thinking Purdue at least does it because that's where I got my information from. So I suspect all the universities they have to. They can't not, right? There has to be a way to cite AI tools. I told the students at the absolute bare minimum, somewhere in your paper you must mention that you used AI tools in the creation of your final project. At the absolute bare minimum, that technically suffices, non-plagiarism, right? They're not plagiarizing because they say they use these AI tools, right? We can't specifically say where they got the information. You as a teacher, and I tell all the students this too, your teacher may not like it. It may affect your grade, but you can't get in trouble because you're not technically plagiarizing if you say that you got the information using an AI.
No, if they are not plagiarizing, then I cannot punish.
Yeah, Well, I highly recommend you make it very clear to your students before you start your project what you expect, right? Yes.
Is it not plagiarism like in terms of copyright? Because there's issues like I've followed that it can be used with like the writer's strike with AI and things, and because they're feeding it with like copyright information, if those elements show up, they are breaking copyright even though it's come from AI tools. So you are still plagiarizing.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
how we
Even
look
though
at that?
the AI generated, you are taking this as.
Well, this is where it gets really gray. Right now, currently in the United States, Kaz, you may have heard of this case that's going on right now too. In the court system somewhere in the US, I'm not sure at what level, ChatGPT is being sued for a lot of money. Like, we're talking billions of dollars. It's like a god-awful amount of money. Because yes, ChatGPT was getting peer-reviewed papers that's like copyrighted, like thoroughly copyrighted, and they're using it. They used it to seed the engines, right? And so that's illegal. They can't do that, and they did it. They say they didn't, but that's what they're going through the court cases right now, today, it's going through. So what I can tell you is, you know, there's not much we can do about it now, but once again, I think it's really important as teachers we just make it extremely clear to the students, listen, this is what I expect in my classroom, and give them the actual, what you believe is to be the best practice.
Like, I think we had a couple of students, or at least one, who got busted for using it now, I think. How did we...
Oh, I'm not unaware of that. I'm not sure.
How did we know? Like, was the teacher thought, oh, this is not this person's...
I suspect they put it in one of the AI detection tools. Yeah. They must have used one. I don't know which one they used. Our school is going to, once again, we're going to use Turnitin. We have a subscription, but we have to pay for the AI part. It was free for a little bit, but they took it away. And now we have to, it's not free any longer, so we have to pay for it.
I think Turnitin has a little issue, because if you, let's say at the early stages, if you put it in Turnitin, and then you finish everything, and you put back in Turnitin, it recognizes that you plagiarized because you already did that.
Well, in Turnitin,
and it gives you like 100% plagiarized of your own work.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming in, I'm almost done. Please come in, have a seat. The Turnitin, there's one little checkbox in there. When you submit student work, you have to make sure that you check or uncheck it, which says keep the paper stored in its database for future reference check. And so you have to uncheck that so it doesn't, if you do it a second time, it doesn't come up with 100% plagiarized. We are about out of time, so to conclude this, once again, I think it's really important that we make very clear to our students that if you're going to use AI tools, that you tell them what your expectations are for using it. I once again also believe that if we should encourage them to use these tools and to use them properly by having them look at their work in multiple stages, whether you use the writing process or not, that is a good way to ensure that they're getting a lot of exposure to the work being generated by the AI, so they're actually learning something. And also, it's proving to you that they're actually working towards making their project better, right, or more authentic, right? And by forcing them, once again, looking at the revision history in Google Documents, it's a great tool that we should all be utilizing, along with the process and being very clear to them. I think the students will come up with, like I said, more authentic work for you. And that will conclude my presentation.